Is that a good tempo there?
Good. A little bit up. Quicker.
That's shocking to me. I mean, I'm a speed demon over here. Watch out. When we get David on the job, we'll be doing a mambo. All right.
The battery died, but we drove anyway. Sleeping with eyes open, dreaming while driving, we drove. Deep into the night, deep into the wind, and when the sun came up and we were, as usual, hopelessly lost, what could we do but drive on? One by one, wheels fell off the car. Dials on the instrument panel spun wildly, and we drove. To music, rapid, dense music with bass lines appropriate to the highway, and then to the perfect silence of an engine gone dead, we drove. We drove from L.A. to Huehuetenango, from the moon's dark side to the burbs of Chicago. Failed the driving test 14 times and just kept driving. We drove with fervor and grace, past cornfields and camels and alien apartment complexes, past skyscrapers and caterpillars and armadillos. We spent our last 85 cents on a styrofoam cup of coffee, and we drove flat broke. We were free. Like the birds of the heaven, like the lilies of the field, like the dangerous whirling stars of the desert sky. Everything fell apart in Las Vegas. Our mechanic collapsed and died under the hood, but the car itself was miraculously resurrected. So we drove on. We drove to Bakersfield, and when Bakersfield was attained, it vanished, and we drove to Fresno. Then a landslide blocked the road, so we huddled behind a billboard and waited for the dynamite to arrive. We drove. Grandma stood in the driveway waving bye-bye. We drove to the swamp to kidnap turtles, returned with both turtles and salamanders. We drove through nowheres crowded with nobodies while clocks struck zero. Ran out of gas, ran out of coffee, drove. We could have been anybody going anywhere. We were anybody. And we drove to get loaves of bread, computers, fly swatters, cough syrup, to get and to have and to be everywhere at once as much as possible. Wheels fell off the car, brakes failed, there was no gas, nowhere left to go. We were being pursued by communist spies and Apaches and pterodactyls, pursued by state troopers and Jack Kerouac and Fred Flintstone and all the ancient hipster superheroes. Mosquitoes and ants panicked as we approached. Many bugs died, many, many bugs, and we drove. We drove out onto the frozen lake, cut holes in the ice, and took photographs of the ghosts trapped in the water. We drove over snowdrifts to the land of the abominable snow people, and we taught them how to parallel park. We drove to the edge of a cliff above the ocean, and then we drove over the cliff. And as we dove through the air and into the water, we just kept driving. We drove to a famous underwater city, whose name I forget, where octopi entwined our old green Buick. Elegant mermaids taunted us with cryptic innuendo, where gigantic swimming eyeballs paralyzed us with their uncanny insight. We just kept driving. We drove past nomadic tribes in excellent embroidered clothes who stood by the side of the road waving bye-bye. We drove from downtown Poughkeepsie to Quintana Roo, from Tucson to Tucumcari, on to Kathmandu, and when neighborhood punks stole the alternator, put Kool-Aid in the gas tank and swiped our CDs, we just kept driving. We drove to the farthest edge of the farthest desert, where restless stars whirled dangerously in the sky, and we drove. We drove as a row of oil wells rose before us and burst into flames. We drove deep into the night, deep into the wind. We could have been anybody going anywhere. We could have been anywhere. And we were anywhere. And we drove to get there. And we drove to leave. Thank you. Thanks.
I'm Robert Sarazin Blake. Join us for songs, guests, and special requests every Sunday from the kitchen table.